All right, good afternoon, everybody. I have finally been able to synthesize my PBS data collection that I took a few weeks ago. Remember, that was my intent, was to collect that information and share. So I wanted to wait till after our PBIS team meeting on Tuesday at Grantwood. And as a quick reminder, we're going to meet as a team next Thursday. I know that's right in the smack dab middle of PLPs, but it was a block everybody had available. And in looking at some of those questionnaires, a lot of people are asking for more feedback and more data, and more tools and suggestions. So that's what we're going to keep doing. And we've got some tweaks to do to our binders, so make sure you bring those binders. So first of all, here we go. Prevention. Remember, PBIS is intended to prevent the problem, not just extinguish. And again, that's that positive recognition to encourage that greater appropriate behavior. So that's just, some of these thoughts are just random, and as you're probably used to by now. Data collected was the week of September 30th. I was able to observe 10 classrooms at 10-minute chunks, and this was awesome. I went into the preschool and didn't get any data because Evelyn asked me to do a puzzle with her, and so who could say no to that? I put that here because it was just a cool little time. So anyway, generalized positive statements not associated with PBIS language, and I don't want to discourage any of that, but we had 51. We did have 26 negative statements, and that sounds more harsh than it needs to be, but negative is those simple stop doing that, that's not right, something along those lines. Comments using specific verbal praise or redirects around sale were 5, and so I'm counting the ratio of 2 to 1. So here's our synopsis. So we as a staff really do a wonderful job of staying positive, for being fair in redirects, and for treating students with compassion, and I just cannot stress that enough. So remember, positive comments, not all of them, when we're going to figure out a more reasonable ratio, has 3 qualities. It's got the student name, it's got the specific behavior of praise, and specific language tied to sale. And there's be some examples down there. So a lot of thumbs up, great smiles, high fives, good jobs are perfectly acceptable. We were joking the other day, if I'm trying to use sale language in every single reinforcer, I'm going to tongue tie my tongue and it's going to sprain. So, sometimes it's just okay to do quick high fives and just that quick recognition. So that's fine. So we, maybe the next step for us as a staff is coming up with a ratio of how many of those positives, those 5 to 1s, do need to be around sale language. And again, there's no magic number. We talked about it at PBS training. And again, it's up to the building and whatever works for us. A lot of times, I am hearing individual students frequently. We all have got one in our class. So here's my suggestion. So if we're using a student's name frequently in redirects, as much as we hate to hear it, there's a good chance the behavior you are wishing to extinguish is only being reinforced. I hear Oliver's name a lot. Trust me, he's got it coming. But, if you're redirecting Oliver, I highly encourage us to reflect on the Tier 1 PBIS practice. And again, we all have Olivers in our classes, so I'm not picking on any one grade or any one student. I think Oliver's a great young man. I've got a lot of great positive reinforcement for him at lunch, and really he has become really he does a great job in lunch. We continue to reinforce his positives in the people around him. Not perfect, but he does a great job. The thing that I've been having conversations with our PBS folks is PBIS, in its essence, we have to retrain our brain on how we approach and redirect our students. I can get 100% of students to stop doing something by telling them to stop. But that does not extinguish the problem behavior. We're trying to stop students from doing the wrong thing. We're trying to reinforce students doing the right thing. So, if we wait for a group to be on task before we move on, then we are reinforcing typically the attention-seeking behaviors we're hoping to extinguish. So if the only way I can get a student to do something is by threatening, move at the end of the line, call your parents, call Mr. McCumber, that's probably not going to have long-lasting effects. And now that said, I'm sure everybody has seen me raise my voice, move a student. probably threaten to call parents, but because sometimes students do need that sort of immediate reset for them. But it can't be our only go-to. Our teachers do a great job, but if in years past I had after-school people and before-school people and different individuals say, I'm going to call Mr. McCumber if you don't, well, that's going to have zero long-lasting effects. Either you call me or you don't. However you choose is fine. But do remember, and this is a big one with our Olivers in the world. If one person is not following our expectations, there's a great chance that at least 15 are, and that's why I really stress not necessarily waiting for 100% compliance. If you want 100% compliance, I'm cool with that. But start targeting those students doing the appropriate thing, and I bet you will get your 100% compliance. I was able to reference some of our trauma-informed care that we had a couple weeks ago. And so, when faced with what they believe to be confrontation, some kids will go into that fight, flight, or freeze. That's that survival brain. Punitive models of behavior management also reinforce the negative effects associated with survival brain. Remember, behavior is a way of communicating an underlying need, and some of those communicating needs are very frustrating for adults. But I love this quote. I put it in bold. Beneath every behavior is a feeling, and beneath every feeling is a need. And when we meet the need rather than focus on the behavior, we begin to deal with the cause, not the symptom. So on the flip side, make this our learning brain. Positive reinforcements are proven to help people feel safe and supportive. That a collective approach, all adults attending to reinforcing positive behaviors around say language, support the effects associated with helping students stay in the learning brain mentality. The training I went to last Wednesday was incredibly boring, but we spent a good chunk in the morning talking about that collective efficacy. And we used to think that social economic status was the number one determinant factor on student success, and now has been displaced with collective efficacy. If an entire building believes and works for, toward, and targeted on student needs, that is proven to be hugely successful for students. So just think how powerful that sort of helping kindergartners learn their letters building wide. Just think how powerful that would be, focusing on reinforcing positive behaviors on the learning brain building wide. It's not a ticket. Remember, it's a reminder to the adults, and that took me a lot of years to figure out and to appreciate. And it doesn't have to be always a ticket. Positive feedback at 5 to 1, remember, has 3 parts. The thumbs up, high fives are great. I cannot stress that enough. But just think how important it would be for you to say, hey, Oliver, I see you raising your hand. Thank you for being appropriate. He does smile at that. He does it at lunch. I worked at middle school. I worked at high school. I've lectured a lot of kids in my 20 years. I have, and to my knowledge, 100% of those messages fall on deaf ears. So now I've just gotten into the habit of anytime I redirect a student or anytime a student is sent to me, I do talk about group plan. I do talk about expectations. I do talk about being safe and appropriate. So I'm going to hit return here. So this is just some examples. This is just some stuff that I picked up through my observations. David is another student whose name I hear frequently, who does very well with positive reinforcement. So he loves to hear his name, he loves to hear the thank you, and he loves to hear what he was doing appropriately. Oliver, it's so great to see you this morning outside. Fresh air is so helpful for you to be an involved learner. A couple mornings, he just wasn't going to come outside. Grayson is another one. I remember very clearly last year saying, encouraging Grayson to come outside. He just wouldn't do it. And when he did, one morning I said, "Oh, hi, Grayson. It's great to see you. I'm so glad you're outside." It's so silly sometimes. But he smiled. Now, he doesn't do it every time. I'll see this in the store in different places in the world, but if a student messes up, I've heard parents say, "See, how hard was it to do the right thing?" Or, How hard was it for you to say thank you? If you are recognizing what they did is right and still kind of criticizing them and doing it, that has its negative effects on people. And as adults, as hard as it is sometimes, we have to stay positive even when we are redirecting. I could just have easily said, see, Grayson, how hard was it for you to come out this morning? And that wouldn't be helpful at all. So reinforcements, non-sale examples. I think it's okay to say, remember your sale expectations. And how I would change that to sale is to, remember your sale expectations, insert what expectations you're hoping for, and then individually reinforce. Again, as a whole group, good job to everyone you're sailing, insert where you are. Again, follow up with specific students. I think it's okay to use that language. I think it's important also to be real specific and direct. Some non-examples of sale. Ella, you're not using your walking feet. You're not being safe. Well, you could try this. Lydiana and Grayson are using body basics in the hall. Walking safely, face forward. Thank you for being safe. Many times the behavior will fix itself, to which you can say, good fix, or have the student go back and practice. This is very important. The good fixes and having somebody practice is only effective if you catch them doing it right the next time and reinforcing with a specific thank you for doing it right the next time. And that can happen anywhere and by everyone. I don't have this written down, but all of us have our expectations on the walls, in the halls, in your rooms, much like your learning goals and success criteria, which is my next, hopefully, data collection. Remember, teach to those. Really, really get into the practice of teaching to those. They're on your walls. Walk over, have the students touch them, point to them, refer back to them. It takes seconds, and it has huge lasting impact on student learning, and it's really simple. Mrs. Ryman is of course, awesome, but she's just, as always saying, we need to slow down to go fast. Slow down, take our time, teach to those standards, teach to those expectations. And we don't have to try to solve the world's problems, especially with behavior with PBS, all before Christmas. Let's take our time. We got a lot of work to do. Be specific in your instruction. Be specific in your praise. Be specific in your redirection. And together as a staff, we'll start figuring out what is that magic ratio for sale language in 5-to-1. What is the the magic way to collect data and to interpret that data. So we're going to talk a lot about it on Thursday. I hope this was helpful. I'll share this document out, and I will have a great weekend. Thank you.